take care of those weight cuts.
Okay.
Here we go. It is now the time and place on July 27th, Monday night, 5:30. We're getting a little late start tonight. Technical problems, but we're ready to go now. This is time and place for the City Commission meeting. Could I have a roll call, please?
Smith.
Here.
Clute.
Here.
Bragg.
Here.
Robish.
Present.
Mayor Harrington.
Here. Join me in pledge of allegiance, please. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Public forum. Public comments may be sent during a live meeting broadcast to the city's YouTube channel. The link is listed on the city's website at www.hurst.com. City government. In order to use the YouTube chat feature, please create an account with your YouTube and Gmail or use your existing accounts. Please state your name and address for the record. During the time of the meeting, if there's anybody on the phone that wants to talk, Kevin's on the phone tonight. Give me a signal and we'll take your questions at that time. So, and in those regards, state your name and address, and we'll go from there. Is there anybody here in the chamber that would like to have a comment for public forum? Not seeing one, we'll move along to the agenda approval. We do have a change in the agenda tonight. We'd like to add a work session, a short work session, I might add, on budget handouts. Our financial director, Paul Lynn's going to explain the handouts that she's given to the commission. She's going to explain those to us, and then next week we'll start going into our first week in August. We'll start going through our budgets to get it satisfied. So the second week in September we can be done with that. So we have a lot of work to do this year on our budget, and so we're looking forward to get started and working through that process. So with that. I need to have a motion to approve the agenda amendment of the agenda.
Motion to approve the agenda with the amendment to add the work session.
Second.
Commissioner Smith, a motion and a second by Commissioner Roberts. All those will give a roll count.
Smith.
Aye.
Clute.
Aye.
Bragg.
Aye.
Robish.
Aye.
Mayor Harrington.
Aye. All right, approved. Consent agenda. Matters appearing on the consent agenda are expected to be non-controversial and will be acted upon by the commission at one time without discussion unless a member of the commission requests an opportunity to address any given item. Items removed from the consent agenda will be discussed at the beginning of the formal items. 4.1, minutes of July 22nd, 2020 commission meeting. 4.2, commission adding Ralph Borkowski as a city volunteer during the United Way Day of Caring program. 4.3, fireworks display permit filed by the South Dakota State Fair for September 6, 2020 at Grandstand Infield on the South Dakota State Fairgrounds. 4.4, special event on sale alcoholic beverages license filed by South Dakota State Fair for a wedding at Expo Building on August 1st, 2nd, 2020. 4.5, alcohol in public Bernie Shot on August 2nd, 2020. Change the location from Memorial Park to Prospect Park. 4.6, consider the appointment of Marlene Fullerton to the Golf Advisory Board effective July 27th, 2020. 4.7, regular status for Candace Dahauer, E911 telecommunicator for completion of the probationary period. 4.8, payment of bills. That's our consent. Do we have a motion for the consent agenda?
Move to approve the consent agenda?
Move to approve by Commissioner Rovers. Need a second?
Second.
Second by Rich Bragg, Christian Bragg. Roll call, please.
Smith.
Aye.
Booth.
Aye.
Drive.
Aye.
Rovich.
Aye.
Mayor Harrington.
Aye. Next up, we have petitions and communications. 6.1, we have an annual update for the Humane Society, and I see Kim's online with us through Zoom, so welcome, Kim.
Welcome. Good evening, everyone. Okay, so to go over, this is for January to June for this year, and the first half of the year, we have had 386 dispatched calls, which compares to 388 from the first half of last year, so we're about right on track, the same. As usual, the bulk of those are running at large. We had 187 of those calls were running at large calls. 35 of those calls were neglect calls, 8 DOA calls, and 18 biter calls, 50 trapping calls, 36 nuisance and wildlife calls, and then the remaining calls, which would have been 52, were errand and vet runs. But I want to go back up a little bit and talk a little bit about the biter numbers, because last year, for the whole year, we had 22 bite calls. We've already through June had 18, and into the first week and a half into July, we've added 6 to that. So we've already surpassed our bite cases for the whole year last year compared to this year. So we just want to remind citizens that, you know, keep your dogs on a leash. Kids are out and about more now, you know, playing outdoors and stuff, sticking around home, you know. So we're just asking the public to help us and keep your dogs at home, keep them on a leash. We've had some pretty severe bites, and it's something we just don't want to have to do on a daily basis, obviously. Animals served to date, we've had 476 intakes compared to 434 for the first half of last year. Current population at the shelter is 65 animals. We have 5 dogs, 60 cats, and a rabbit. The dispositions for January through June of 2020, we have adopted or rehomed 152 cats, 55 dogs, and a rabbit. We have returned to owner 1 cat and 66 dogs, and that makes me sad because we've had hundreds of cats come in, and to know that only 1 of them has been returned to their owner. So again, asking owners to make sure your cats have their tags on them. It is a city ordinance that they need to be licensed. We want to get these cats back to you. Dogs too. We have wildlife and or farmed or released 45. 38 of the DOAs were cats. And now to get into the euthanasia numbers, in the first half of January to June of 2020, we euthanized 27 cats, 15 dogs, and 1 rabbit. The rabbit had a broken back. The felines, 3 of them were severe injuries. 13 were feral and ill. 4 were aggressive and biters. 7 with severe health issues. And the canine breakdown, 1 was a senior dog with degenerative ligament disease. 1 was a senior with severe diabetes complications. 1 was a senior arthritic and ill, a senior heart failure, 9 aggressive and or biters, 1 senior cancer, and 1 severe injury. And I went through all those euthanasia numbers just because we want to be full disclosure. We don't euthanize anything that it isn't the humane thing to do for the animal. Licenses sold to date, we've sold to date approximately 600 licenses in the city of Huron. Other than that, I just want to update the commission on how we are operating the shelter right now, which is by appointment only. Obviously, our mission is to care for the animals in need, and in order to do that with the limited staff we have, we're going by appointment only in order to keep our staff as healthy as possible. So clients can call the shelter between 8 and 12 p.m. Monday through Friday. We set up appointments. We are asking that clients go onto our website at dakotacritters.petfinder.com, look at the animals we have, read their bios. You can find out so much about the animals just by reading the bios and find out if you feel they're a fit for your home, so that we can make an appointment for that particular animal, just to minimize exposure to staff and clients as well. So that's kind of how we're operating right now, just kind of taking it day by day. We want to thank all the community for continuing to support the shelter. Obviously, we've had some fundraisers that we haven't been able to do. We haven't. Our upcoming fundraiser, our pet portraits in October, is of course uncertain. So we just want to send a shout out to the community that we're grateful for all the support, and we have a great community. So I know I'm not alone in that. Other than that, that's kind of all I have, unless the commission has any questions for me.
Kim, I have one.
Yes.
Our 600 licenses, is that about the same as it was last year?
Last year we sold, at that time we had less than 400. So we're a little higher, which we're grateful for, but we all know we have way more than 600 animals that live in this community, and those tags are just so important, with especially like these senior animals that, we don't want to have to make that call, but we're not going to allow an animal to suffer. So ID on the pets is so important, and getting, only returning one cat to its owner. These animals should have tags. We can get them home to you.
Okay. Yeah, Commissioner Clute has a question for you.
Kim, on the biting issue you brought up, is it a reflection on the kinds of dogs that are being purchased? Or?
I'll tell you, recently there has been an influx. A couple years back, I went through all the numbers, and when I went through those numbers, it showed that you were more likely to get bit by a poodle or a terrier mix than you were any other breed. But recently, in the past few months, a lot of these are pit bull mixes. So, and it's not the breed. It's that they're not socialized enough. They may be protecting their property, scared of kids riding by on a bike, things that can easily be corrected. But yeah, to be honest, the breed has increased on the pit bull and pit bull mix.
Any other questions for Kim? Thanks, Kim. We appreciate what you do for us.
Thank you. Have a great night, everyone.
You bet. Thank you. 6.2, we have semi-annual update for the South Dakota State Fair, and we have Peggy Bush here tonight.
Good evening. So good to see everybody, and I'm going to try and talk without getting all fogged up here. So yeah, so I thought I'd talk a little bit about some of our upcoming non-fair events. Obviously talk about State Fair and touch on some of our maintenance and repair projects. So the first thing I thought I would talk about, as I would speculate what's on everybody's minds these days, is what steps are we taking as a result of COVID? And while we are certainly encouraging self-responsibility and self-awareness, we are implementing several health and safety measures in an effort to reduce the risk of exposure. So I'll just run through some of those things. So first of all, we will have signage throughout the grounds in both English, Spanish, and Karen. They'll be at our gates and throughout the grounds all over the place. We put up a bunch. We had our first event this past weekend, so we had the signage out and about throughout the grounds where that event was taking place. The signage addresses, talks about that COVID is everywhere in public places, and so encouraging people to take precautions, wear a mask, wash your hands. If you're not feeling good, go home, those kinds of things. We are having additional hand washing stations constructed, so where we have water and sewer, so we can avoid trying to have to service them. So those are being constructed, and then we also have a whole bunch of portable hand sanitizing stations. So those will be placed at very strategic locations as you enter into buildings, as you enter the grounds, some of those high traffic areas. Let's see here, lose track here. We'll be distancing our picnic tables and our benches where it makes sense and where we have the ability to do that. We'll be increasing our sanitizing practices grounds-wide and high touch point areas. We have obtained all the equipment to have the ability to do that. As far as our employees, we will be doing a pre-fair orientation with all our employees, hopefully in person, some via Zoom, and some will be just a hard copy, the ones that we can't connect right prior to the fair. All our employees will be going through the process of self-examination temp checks. All our employees do that now, so anybody that comes on the grounds has to temp check right there, and we keep a log of that. We will be providing employees with personal hand sanitizer, pocket hand sanitizers, and then also large quantities in like superintendent's offices, those types of things. We have also installed, or in the process of installing, work in progress, the personal protective barriers in places that make sense. So at our gates, when you come up to the gate, we'll have barriers there. Anywhere where we have the ability to do that, we are doing that. We'll also have masks available for all of our employees, encouraging them to wear them, but it's not mandatory, so it'll be up to the individual employees. As far as our Department of Corrections staff, we have protocols that have been developed by Department of Corrections, and we're following all their protocols. Our food vendors, we have required them to wear masks. We have eliminated all self-service products and condiments, so salt and pepper should be in packets, mustard, ketchup, those kinds of things, just to eliminate all that contact. And then of course, just encouraging that frequent sanitizing of their booths and high touch areas. The carnival, we get asked a lot about the carnival. So they are certainly going through their, I guess, making modifications in preparedness as well. So they will have hand sanitation stations strategically throughout the carnival area. All rides will be sanitized daily with periodic cleaning throughout the day. I've had several questions about, are you going to sanitize in between every ride? And that's just not practical. The ride would be shut down more than, but there is some products that they're using. I can't go into all the specifics because I don't know it, but it's a spray down and dries really quickly, and so they'll be doing that often. Carnival rides and lineups will be modified where applicable to promote social distancing. The carnival employees will undergo the same temp protocols as our team. And then they're also making modifications to some rides. So for example, the merry-go-round has 3 rows of horses, and they can remove a row and strategically place them. There are several rides that are already meet the social distance guidelines, and they have some rides that they're not going to be bringing, that they're just so much high contact. So before I move on, is there any questions on that?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, the
Why
health.
would the employees not be required to wear masks, but the food vendors are?
You know, I guess you think of a food vendor, the close area that they're in, was just one of the recommendations, and so that's the recommendation we went with.
I will say that, I guess there's one silver lining to the pandemic. If we can get more hand washing stations out there, I hope going forward, you know, I mean, it's always a hard thing to stay clean at the fair, you know.
Right.
And that kind of thing, so I think that's great.
Yeah, the challenge with hand washing, I mean, we are bringing in more hand sanitizing stations, but of course you have to have the bodies to service those. So we do have a professional company that is bringing almost double what we normally have, and they will be servicing them. But then we also are constructing, so at the food court, there will now be a permanent sinks on each end, because that's a location where we could have access to water and sewer. You know, every place that we love to have a portable, permanent portable, you know, that would have access to water and sewer. That's financially not hardly feasible, because usually wherever you have sewer, you have water close by. But there are several locations that we're adding them.
One more question on the masks. Okay, so you're gonna be making available for the employees, but will the public have access to masks if they wanted one, like they showed up and didn't have a mask? Will there be any kind of?
You know, realistically, if it were a handful, I mean,
Yeah.
we purchase a large quantity to accommodate our employees having so many
Yeah.
every day. It's not realistic for us to be able to provide probably to everybody who walked through the door. We are having some available for sale.
Yeah.
You know, if it were a handful of people that said, hey, I forgot it, I really like one, but the reality is,
But say, maybe some company might be very interested in selling them there.
right, and there could be
We
some vendors that
position them
have
at the
that.
door there, or at the gates. I'm just
Right.
kind of calling that, but I make it available, but that's okay.
Yeah, I'd like to think, well, it's probably not practical. I'd like to think if you're coming to the fair and you're gonna wear a mask, you're gonna come with your mask. And if you're coming to the fair and you wanna take precautions, you're gonna come, you know, I don't go anywhere without hand sanitizer anymore and, you know, a supply of mask and, but you're right, it's possible somebody will come and forget it or, but we will have some available for sale. There may be some vendors out there that will be providing them. To be honest, I had not thought about trying to station them at the gates, but then which gates do you pick to station them at, and things to think through, I guess.
Peggy, I have a question, and maybe you're gonna cover that coming up, but the question that I have is in regard to the high concentration of, in the past, high concentration areas for people, i.e. family living, beer gardens, all those booths. What's that going to look like this year?
I'm going to, in full transparency, it's probably going to look very much the same. We're not at capacity with our vendors, but we're about 75% capacity. We have some buildings where the superintendents are taking it upon themselves to enter, you know, egress and ingress, is that right? But the reality is, you know, there's no way first of all, we can't control how, you know, the flow and how people are, if they're gonna abide by the rules or not. There are steps we are taking where we can, you know, Freedom Stage, the benches will be spread out. We're moving some things into the infield, which I'll get to that, where we have more ability to spread out. The grandstand will be all general admission so that people can use the wings and sit where they want to so that they can social distance.
Will
But
the beer gardens have a capacity limitation?
I don't know that we do now. We
And our
don't,
bars
we
do,
won't.
you know, we're at 50% here.
Right, we have not discussed that. We've talked about extending, so we've moved some things into the grandstand. We talked about then widening the area for the beer garden and putting in more of the big spools so that people are allowed to social distance. But again, that's one of those things where, you know, if you're concerned, then don't go. If you're not comfortable,
Well, it may be concerned, but I mean, I think that is one of the focal points of the spread of the virus is the bar scene. And I mean, that's what concerns me. I mean, I think people milling around during the day, I think probably gonna be fine out there, you know. But when they start packing together at night in that bar, I've been at the beer gardens when it's just, I mean, you can't even hardly move. Is that the scene? I mean, if we're gonna be shoulder to shoulder like that, we're gonna have a spike in the virus. That's what I'm worried about. Without capacity limitations or without some kind of, I don't know, what you do. I mean, it's kind of like what we're gonna be seeing out at Sturgis. I don't know what they're gonna do out there, but what kind of scene you're gonna have, but we're not gonna be limiting capacity, that's what you're saying.
we have not talked about that.
Mr. Robish?
Yeah, thank you. Just from what you've covered so far, so the carnival is gonna go on as normal, I mean, not normal, you said they're not gonna bring some. But there's all kinds of stories going around, you know, no carnival, more carnival, less carnival, whatever, but there is going to be carnival.
There is going to be a carnival,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, that's good. There'll be more questions, that's okay.
Well, and kind of piggyback on Commissioner Clute, you know, when you have those confined buildings, and I realize you're trying to walk your way through this, Peggy. It's a little bit challenging when we come back to our city owners, proprietors, and say, well, you know, these guidelines, this is for maximum capacity, and State Fair, they're just doing whatever they want, kind of thing. So it might be something to take to your commission in consideration. I don't know if you get anywhere with that or not.
Yeah, these are all things we've talked about and continue to talk about. I mean, there's certainly no playbook for anybody in this situation, and things evolve every day. And it seems like every day when we think we have a plan, then we shift it or we change things, or so believe me, these are all things we have discussed at length.
Sure.
So I certainly, you know, we can revisit it.
I guess I think this is a great discussion. We're, what, a month away from it?
37 days.
Which makes it difficult to impose any new changes to it. But I kind of thought it would be a much more scaled down fair. When I heard the decision was made to have the fair, I thought, well, that's pretty gutsy, but I bet they're gonna really, you know, just try to downsize it a little bit. But it doesn't really sound like we're downsizing it at all, right? I mean, there's no real restrictions on anything. I think maybe we've had a few concerts canceled, is that the big impact of it?
Yes, we're not having any concerts.
So we're not
But we
having
are
that.
We are having entertainment in the grandstand.
Okay, but I don't want to talk like a broken record here, but I am concerned about those beer gardens, because you can them in there, and then they get, I think you could control the capacity a little bit to avoid that kind of thing. That might be something you think about.
Well, we can certainly.
Because, you know,
revisit
you
that.
can't sit physically distant if everybody is shoulder to shoulder. You just can't do it, even if somebody wanted. And I suppose why you could say, well, leave then. Well, I don't know. Is that a great solution to the problem?
We can certainly revisit it.
Yeah.
Mr. Bragg, you have something?
I was gonna say some similar comments, that if some of those spaces, like in the buildings, as both Commissioner Clute-Smith have alluded to, whether, and I realize crowd control, crowd management during the fair is difficult, even in a non-COVID year, so it's not easy for what we're asking for. We certainly understand that, but if there was an attempt to have certain buildings that had a capacity, or the beer garden that had a capacity, just in order to be consistent with what the rest of the state and the rest of our city is doing, that would be great if you could take that back to your commission, because that's, we're certainly concerned about the aftermath here, and I know you guys at the fair have been great partners. You're not taking a cavalier attitude with this, you're concerned about it as well, but we're looking at the health and wellness of our community after the fair is over, so that's why we're requesting, it sounds like without requiring masks and without putting restrictions on some of these spaces, the opportunity at least exists for some spread that would be concerning for us.
I mean, move
Continue.
on.
Go ahead.
Okay. Phew, okay. So as I said, this last weekend was our first event. We had South Dakota Summer Spotlight. They had great crowds, tested our new electrical in several buildings and didn't have any issues, so that was all positive. Coming up this week and starting tomorrow, actually, there's a test and tune out at Dakota State Fair Speedway, so it's not open to the public, so it's just drivers and their pit crew to get back and break in that track. So it'll be nice to hear the noise of racing again in our community. This weekend we have a wedding and then the Gridiron Futurity Barrel Race. And then starting next week is the Beetle County 4-H Days, Achievement Days, and then of course the National Red Power Roundup. So, and kicking off the National Red Power Roundup is the Great Plains Tractor and Pickup Show presented by Titan Machinery. That'll be on August 7th. So we had to reschedule the National Red Power Roundup, so now it'll get kicked off with the tractor pull on Friday, and then the roundup is Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. So, and then of course, try and clear the grounds and get ready for fair. There is a Dakota State Fair Speedway race on August 22nd, which will be featuring the WISSOTA late models, modifieds, mid-mods, street stocks, and super stocks. So again, it'll be great to see racing on the fairgrounds. So the State Fair is, as I said, 37 days away, September 3rd through the 7th, with preview day on the 2nd. I'll just touch on a few things here. We will be having our 4-H and FFA shows. They, of course, have all made some modifications to their programming as a result of COVID, but we're thrilled to have them continue to be such a big part of what we're all about. Our open class livestock shows, our entries are strong. In fact, we've had to close entries for a couple of our livestock barns already. Our equestrian events are all on tact. New this year will be a draft horse soccer derby, so that'll be fun to watch with those great big horses. And then we moved the timed event rodeo into the grandstand, so the arena that we purchased after the National Junior High Finals. We'll be getting set up in the infield, and then hopefully, if all goes well, we can get in the infield and try and work racing. If we can continue to have racing program next year, keep the rodeo arena, so in between racing programs, we could do something with our rodeo arena. Static entries are coming in steady. They always come in slower than livestock, and the deadline for that is actually this Friday. So there are entries in all divisions, so we'll see how that comes together. Let's see, I touched on that and that.
Peggy, can I interrupt you for a second
Yes.
before you get too far down the road there? So have a lot of county 4-H events, have those continued this year?
So it was up to county by county. Many were canceled. 4-H did eliminate any of the requirements to participate in state fair, so that was one of the modifications they made.
That's where I was going.
Mhm,
Yeah,
yes.
thank you.
The grandstand, as I mentioned, we're not having any concerts there, and all the events will be general admission, so people can choose to sit where they want to choose. So Thursday we have the salute to veterans. That was in the Freedom Stage, but we moved it out into the grandstand. And then we'll have the Red Wolf Construction Tough Heeneman Bull Bash. Friday we'll have the again the Bull Bash. Saturday will be the timed event rodeo, and then also that evening will be a big air ATV show, and that'll be free to the public. Sunday, again, the timed event championship rodeo, and then that evening we'll be having a laser light show and fireworks, and that is free to the public. And then on Monday is the Thunder at the Fair Outlaw Truck and Tractor Bowl. Free entertainment, we are still going to have our 6 stages of free entertainment. So they will feature educational programming, awards, recognitions, and of course, musical entertainment. So some bands, Sherwin-Linton and the Cotton Kings are coming back. Our family show this year is the Amazing Dobermans. Let's see. So as far as our marketing efforts, I've kind of shifted some things around. So we're going to have more emphasis on our digital products and like our State Fair app. So like our tabloids, we usually distribute all over and have them. We're not doing those this year. We're actually going to partner with the Plainsmen on their tabloid to be distributed at the gates. But again, just updating our digital platforms. We are doing it's called Texpo. So all the vendors will have a sign on their booths that there'll be a number you can text. So if you were to go through a building and you don't want to approach that vendor, or if they're busy for whatever reason, you could just text that number and you automatically will get that vendor's information, any literature they have about their products, and then that vendor in return at some point could reach out to you if they wanted to. So a new service we thought we would test out. And then we're also really pushing online purchasing. So you can buy your gate passes right now online. Any grandstand acts, certainly you can buy online. We're also working with our ticketing company in an effort, if we can make our technology work, to have kiosks at our gates. So you wouldn't necessarily have to go to the gate person. You could just go up and purchase your ticket at the kiosk. Also working with our sponsors and our ticketing company to figure out how we can offer our coupons digitally, so that you don't necessarily have to go somewhere and purchase it. Our campgrounds are full. We have over 1,600 campsites reserved. And then if I just shift into our maintenance projects, so we just completed 95% complete Our swine complex, the 4-H livestock barn, and the 4-H beef tie-ins all have complete new electrical upgrades. So this was the first year, for example, during Summer Spotlight, where we didn't have a whole bunch of electrical issues, and considering how hot it was really nice. The beef complex has all new walk-in doors and also big overhead doors, and is getting new skylights that are being installed. And then our south end of our swine complex has all new concrete. And that's all I have. Any other questions?
Any questions for Peggy? Yes.
I
Mr.
don't
Rhodes?
I don't have any questions, but I'm gonna give you a pre-fair attaboy, because, I mean, I've been working evenings out there during the last few fairs, and if you wanna go out there, but Peggy and her crew, they don't have shifts. They have the fair. And they all walk around like zombies about the third day. And this year, I think it's gonna be a little tougher. You might have half the people, you might have twice the people, don't know. So, I'm gonna say good luck to you. You bet.
Certainly challenging.
Peggy, you want to make a spiel on need for employees?
We definitely have a need for employees, and we always have a need for employees, so that's nothing new. But definitely, we have added some positions this year as a result of COVID, and building attendants, we're calling them just for sanitizing and that kind of thing. So we have a lot of different positions open, from working at the gates to building attendants, security, all the usual positions. So thank you, Mayor, for pointing that out.
Yes, Commissioner.
Peggy, what about Red Power Roundup? And obviously had to change the date, and then concerns about COVID. What are you hearing from them in terms of their number of registrations and stuff? How do you expect that to compare to previous years?
You know, to be honest, I don't know. We actually had a meeting with some of the organizers of Red Power today. They're funneling a ton of calls, so they're excited. You know, a lot of those folks don't register, they just show up. So it's, you know, none of us have a crystal ball, but we're feeling good about it. We're feeling really good about it. We've got a lot of calls on camping. I think a lot of folks, and it's probably going to play this way for the fair as well, they're just kind of waiting to see what's it look like, you know, a week before the fair or the week before the roundup, that kind of thing. But, you know, we're still anticipating Everything Harvester to be there, so definitely want to encourage folks to come out and go through the tractors and memorabilia, and we have some live free entertainment. Well, I shouldn't say free, because you do have to pay at the gates. But there'll be some live entertainment, and there's a steak feed one evening and a chicken feed another evening, and food vendors. So.
Commissioner Smith?
How's your camping situation, Becky, for the fair? I assume the grounds are full like they always are, but are you getting calls of, like in the past, where, hey, we need some areas for housing and camping? Are you
We
getting
do.
some of those calls?
We've worked with the chamber in updating the housing list. In fact, I'm trying to think of who I talked to the other day. They said they've gotten more calls private housing this year than they've ever had. So, I don't know. You know, some days you feel like there's not going to be a lot of people there, and other days you just don't know.
Yeah, it's difficult to plan for it until it's over. Then it's, I should have done this different.
Right.
But I think, you know, overall, we're very fortunate to be the host of the state fair, our community and our city. And it's a long tradition that we've had the ability to do that. And there's constant improvements going on at the state fairgrounds that have been going on for many years. And while it's positive to see that the state fair is going to continue that tradition this year, I think we have to take on the attitude of, if there's things that we can do at our level to help, by all means ask, you know, because we're the hosts, you know, and we want to provide a good venue for people to come to. And so if there's any questions or any help that we can provide, and I'm speaking on behalf of the commission, please ask.
I appreciate that, and usually we're not very shy of asking for help. We've always had support from the city. In fact, we had the support from the city this weekend when our sewer system went south on us, you know, on Saturday, I think it was. So I honestly, we couldn't manage without the support from the city. So I really appreciate that, and greatly appreciate all the support from the city, from all the departments.
And it's not like any other previous year, Peggy. Our support has not diminished. There's obvious concerns like anywhere else, but just know that you have our support.
Thank you.
With that, thank you.
All right.
Thanks, Peggy.
Thank you.
We'll see you out there.
Thank you.
Other sheet.
Okay, moving on with petitions and communications. 6.3, we consider the annual trailer court license renewals. Mobile home parks are renewed annually by the building inspector and expire on July 31st. The parks are inspected and a copy is forwarded to the owners and/or park managers. The renewal fee is the deposit fee of $25 in addition to $3 per lot. Any deficiency found in the inspection must be corrected within 30 days or permit will be suspended. City Ordinance 5-40-30. The following trailer courts have been approved by the building inspector for their annual license renewal, and the annual fees have been paid. Shelter Trailer Court, 1500 3rd Southwest. Huron Mobile Estates, 541 Ohio Northwest. Huron Mobile Courts, 602 Jersey Northeast. Woody's Trailer Court, 1350 4th Southwest. And finally, Prairie Villa, 1400 21st Street Southwest. I entertain a motion for approval.
Motion to approve the renewals.
Motion by Commissioner Smith, and you a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Robish. Roll call, please.
Smith.
Aye.
Clute.
Aye.
Brad.
Aye.
Robish.
Aye.
Mayor Harrington.
Aye. Okay, now moving on to ordinances and resolutions. 7.1, resolution number 2020-11. I'm going to have our city attorney, Tucker Boleski, explain what this is and where we're going with it. Tucker, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Federal CARES Act legislation created a coronavirus relief fund for purposes of providing financial resources to state and local governments. South Dakota has received $1.25 billion, and Governor Nome has directed that coronavirus relief funds be made available to cities and counties. On January 22nd, 2020, the governor created the Local Government COVID Recovery Fund, allocating $200 million for city and county governments from the state of South Dakota's overall federal allocation. The local government COVID recovery funds may only be used to cover costs that are necessary expenditures due to the public health emergency with respect to COVID-19. Were not accounted for in the budget most recently approved as of March 27th, 2020 for the government entity. Were incurred during the period that begins on March 1st, 2020 and ends on December 30th, 2020. And have not been reimbursed or where reimbursement has not been requested from another source of funds, including but not limited to other federal programs. So this ordinance just authorizes the execution of contractual documents to receive CARES Act funds and the reimbursement agreement with the state of South Dakota.
Thank you, Doctor. A motion to approve? So moved by Commissioner Bragg. Need a second for that motion?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Smith. Have a roll call vote, please.
Can we have discussion?
You can have discussion.
Because I had a question. So we've been allocated roughly $3.1 million already, right?
3,024,000.
But now we have to, in order to access the 3.1, we're going to have to account for the necessary expenditures due to the pandemic, et cetera, pursuant to this resolution, correct?
We'll have to get approval, we'll have to submit what we feel is, it can be covered, and they'll have to get approved by the board out there.
Right. And so we have a certain amount of time to do that, but we can't, what if we had $5 million worth of necessary expenses? We're limited to the 3.1, right? I mean, they've already made that determination. The city of Huron's not gonna get any more than that. Was that just, was that a figure that was based on population, basically? Is that how they allocated it? So they basically decided, okay, we're gonna have this 200 million, whatever number Tucker just recited, and we're gonna throw that back to the local governments based on population. So they just kind of picked a number out of the air then, out of that $1 billion, and so basically 20% of what they got, they thought they would give back to the city government without any real idea of the expenses we're incurring, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure how they did calculate that.
And so if we're not able to justify it, or we're gonna turn it back then, is that what we're gonna do?
That's what it is now, yeah.
That's why it's written in the agreement, that they, so there's a group, the Northeast Council Local Government Group. They have meetings and calls every Thursday with the Bureau of Finance. And so like things come up, like we already know there's things we need because of this, or things we've already spent money on. And one of the things that we can be reimbursed for is our public safety wages from March 1st through December 30th. So right now that includes dispatch and police department.
Did we budget that already then?
We did, and that's a question that came up with other cities. And I don't know if Tucker found that out either, but today they were talking about that. They've talked to the Bureau of Finance about that, and it still says in the frequently asked questions on the website that it is for wages for public safety only. So,
And I know there's some controversy about that, and I guess going forward, I'm a little beyond the topic here, but I just wanted a little more information to set the stage, since we're gonna have to have some serious discussions about this going forward. No further questions. Thank you, Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, if I could follow up to this, so then, because that was a similar question, and obviously Tucker maybe could eventually give us a better answer, but it sounded like not only would, if we didn't use it, it would be referred back to the state, but then it would even be referred back to the federal government by the way that the thing read in a quick read, so.
You might be right. I'm sure there's some sort of requirements at the state level to receive the money too. And if they can't justify it, they would have to turn it back.
yes.
That'll be the day when government ever turns back money.
So our thought is if we can come up with things that are happening because of COVID or that we should do everything we can to use that money.
Well, we should. We can have that philosophical talk, I guess.
Okay.
Good to go, Tucker? Okay.
I just have one question.
Yes, Commissioner Roberts.
Are we going to speak on that as a commission then, or who's gonna decide this? Who's gonna decide how much money we are gonna keep, want? whatever, or we can discuss that? Or are we gonna
Well, we
vote on
can
it right
bring,
now?
I guess, as we figure it, I mean, we have to do this part first. They've actually even set up spreadsheets for us to figure wages. We have all our task force expenses, anything we buy, anything COVID right now can be done. and
Our sampling
reimbursed.
center.
But we're gonna pass on that list of expenditures as a commission, that's Mark's.
That's my
Question.
question.
Some of them you already have because we've already spent the money. We've spent
Well,
money
that,
on some.
well, I'm sure we have spent some money,
You're
but I
saying you
mean,
wanted to come to commission before the pay request goes to the state.
right, it's gonna come before us.
Normally it wouldn't, because you're approving that now with this agreement.
No, we're not approving that, we're just, we're saying that we're going to
Right.
request reimbursement for costs, necessary expenditures caused by the, so, I mean, who's gonna make that request? It's us. We,
Yes.
as a commission.
Yes, so that, if you're saying you would like a listing every time we send a pay request in, we can do that for approval.
Well, we
Normally in
haven't,
grant monies, we don't do that.
I guess the reason my question, it sounded like a pretty generic question, but the reason for my question was, we all know that Huron received $3.1 million.
$3,024,000.
So there's a lot of people asking, why did the city of Huron receive $3.1 million? And what are we gonna do with that?
It's based on population. There's communities out there that got $400.
Yep, I understand.
You know, where Broadland, for example, or some small community like that. It was based on population entirely. What we have to do as a city is to figure out what is reimbursable and submit that to a panel in Pier, and they'll decide whether what we decide we think is reimbursable, they'll decide whether it is or not. Then they will send out the money to us. We don't really have much of a say in it, other than the fact that we submit, and they will make the decision whether what we submit is proper or not.
but again, getting to Mark's question, I think it's a good question. The list of reimbursed expenses that we're gonna ask for should be approved by this commission. That's my opinion.
And, you know, I would say if we thought we were going to go above and beyond the $3,024,000 and we had to decide which things get funding and which don't, that would be more critical. More than likely, it sounds like from working with the city in the finance office, it may be difficult to find enough qualifying expenses to even utilize all those dollars. So I guess I would think, I mean, you're right, there's a philosophical question about expense, but I think, you know, for the responsibility to our taxpayers, that anything that we have made expenditures that could qualify, we would want to use everything that we can. And I don't think we're gonna get to where we're having to decide we have more than $3,024,000, so what are we not gonna put in for reimbursement for? Likely, we're gonna have to come up with everything that could possibly qualify, and we still won't even use up all the money.
Well, you may be very well right, Rich, but I'm just saying, before we submit a request for reimbursement, those lists of expenses need to be approved by this commission, in my opinion. I mean, what are you gonna, you're gonna have a non-elected officer make that decision? I mean.
The decision to submit will come from our department heads. They'll tell us what has been spent for COVID and stuff like that. So that's going to come to our department heads, will be supplied to our financial officer. She'll sit down, she'll draw up a list that she is going to submit. And once it leaves this office, it is out of our hands whether we get what comes back to us. So really,
No, I mean, I understand that.
Are you saying you think we're gonna lose something? Or you think we're gonna make something, we're gonna take advantage of somebody? Or we're not gonna
Well,
put in enough?
I think there's a number of considerations, and maybe Rich is right, maybe it's unlikely that we'd ever,
I don't think
we
we
can
ever
get to exceed 3 million. But I do know that there's a COVID-19 project out there for like the Violet Cheddar Memorial Nursing Home, that there's a proposal to try to make that into some sort of center to treat COVID patients.
Yeah,
Okay?
we haven't seen any building plan or any business plan on that yet.
No, I understand that, but I'm just saying it's a big COVID-19 project that could require some significant dollars. Whether it's a good project or not is I'm not advocating for it right now.
And what we're spending, what we'll be submitting here will be city expenses.
For local
That's a
business,
separate,
private
that's a
entities.
private one. That's not gonna be part of a city. We won't be suspending something for that in the city, for the city. It's what we spend for the city to get money back.
And that's where my question originated. I know I have one department head that has filled me in, not a lot, quite a bit from what we're going to get reimbursed, okay? Not all of my departments have done that. I have all the confidence and the faith in every department that we have there. I have all the confidence.
There's a lot of things, a lot of questions still to be answered on this. You know,
I guess-
nobody knows exactly.
Right.
I was on a call the other day with the other mayors, the large mayors in the state. There's a ton of questions because nobody's got the full, complete answers to it yet. We have time to submit, and we're gonna submit things. As a matter of fact, the 9 mayors we met with, their suggestion is everybody that submits something, send us a list of what you submit and what was approved and what wasn't, so we don't do the same thing they're doing, so.
Right. And
There's a lot of questions out there.
And I just want everybody to know, I have all the confidence and the faith in all our department heads. I do have that, but if I have to put my vote on it, I have to know what I'm saying, that I'm okay. That's what I'm getting at. That's what I'm
That's
saying.
fine, we can have a
Yeah.
vote on it.
Yeah, and
No, I
that's
think
all.
that's
I'm
fine.
We're not denying that, I just,
Because they have specific spreadsheets already set up of how we have to ask for the money.
yeah.
Because
It's not
you
me
can-
making something up. There's already a spreadsheet set up by the state of how you fill it out and send in a request. And we're fortunate, we meet every Monday night, so we could go through it.
And I know this is not for private businesses, I understand, but everything has been COVID related this year. Everything, in every business is COVID related. So for me to vote on that, I understand my departments are getting this relief. I just want to know that before I say yay or nay. That's what I'm saying. Because all businesses are feeling the COVID effect.
We're talking just about city,
Yep, right.
city,
Exactly.
just to get that out there.
I just wanted that clear.
There's no problem?
If I might add something, Mayor, I think there's 2 actions in this resolution, if I'm looking at it correctly. The first action is to approve the resolution authorizing the execution of the documents.
That's what we do.
And then there's a separate component regarding what we're discussing, the reimbursement agreement relationship with the state. With the balances that are put out there with all the way from city to county to state to federal government auditing and the sensitivity of these funds being performed at those various levels, I don't feel that I need to review all of those bills to approve them at a commission level. I think there's auditing processes in place that if there's any indication of that the funds are not being used to what the program is offering or authorizing, as you stated, Mayor, it's going to get kicked out at the state level. So I would, I guess if it comes down to a vote, I would vote that, I would leave that up to our qualified staff to review that.
We approve bills every week. That's part of our job. We have to approve them. I mean, it's pretty pro forma, but we still have to put our ayes or nays on it And if I saw something that was untoward or something, I would be duty bound to raise an issue on that. Probably won't. But I'm thinking more of a broad stroke thing, because we don't know really how we're gonna justify these expenses. Where are these expenses gonna come out? I'd like to look at that. I'd like to think about, well, is that really COVID related? And maybe Rich is absolutely right. Maybe we're gonna be scratching our heads raw at trying to think of ways to spend $3 million. I don't know. But if we're talking about law enforcement salaries, if we can pay all their salaries, well, according to this little thing here for this next year, we're gonna be spending about $2.5 million on the police department. So I'm sure they could probably absorb a lot of that if that's what, if we're able to do that. And I don't quite understand that, since we're already budgeting.
If we want to have a vote on it, we can have a vote on it. If you want to vote every time we get ready to submit, we can vote on it. And Monday, that's why we meet Mondays, we can do that. That
Well,
won't be
of
a
course,
problem.
the first time is gonna be like 5 months worth of expenses, right?
I
It's
don't.
gonna be a big chunk.
It's gonna take me a while to even get through it all.
Yeah.
So,
So I mean, it isn't gonna be like,
Well, okay, so it'll be
Continual.
one Monday, we'll have 5 months of bills to pay.
I would like to see that.
And
Gary.
we can do that. We can do that. Nobody's saying we can't do that. I'm just saying that, trying to explain the process to you, how it works, and what we're gonna work with. We're gonna work with
Yeah.
our city project, with our department heads, what's owed to the city here, and not what's owed to any private business or anything like that. We don't have that jurisdiction at this time. We don't have the power to say, we're gonna spend money on that company or this company, only the city.
And
And
it's
that's
a-
what we're working
you know,
on.
just
But
to-
we can vote on it every time we
You know, it's
send
a
a bill.
reimbursement. We can't, you know, if we have something we think can be eligible, instead of spending money, we ask that group at the state, is this eligible? Here's why we're doing it. We have to justify why we're doing it. So that's one of the things. You know, we have a couple of things that we've already been talking about, that we know we'd like to send to the state and say, hey, is this justifiable? You know, I got some department heads that are on Zoom meetings that don't have laptops. Can I get them a laptop that they can have for Zoom? Different things like that. You know, radio so they can stay in contact with things. Those are things we did not budget for, but we can't just pay for it and ask for reimbursement. We have to ask them if it's approved first before we can even purchase it, and then ask for reimbursement. And then there's some specific things that we've already spent money on, like task force things. All the hours of anybody on the task force gets reimbursed. That's already approved to do that. But that's where I have to list every individual and the hours and the rate and send that in on a form that they've already put together. So it'll take me some time to get through that, but yes, I can bring it to a meeting or email it to y'all or.
And so, yeah, in terms of, it's not gonna be any new work for you, because you have to,
We're already
you're gonna have to
keeping track of
document all this
things.
anyway. It would just be a matter of the timing, whether you submit it and then we see the results after the fact, or
Right.
we see beforehand what you're planning to submit and make sure that's approved. But at least it's not like we're asking a lot of extra work on your department or any department.
No,
They're gonna have to fill that
we're
paperwork
already
out.
tracking it. We've started a book. We started it back in March already. Because we figured there would be FEMA funds or something.
So, you know, Commissioner Clute, just in terms of specifically, you know, like some of these things, it sounds like she'll be putting a request in before we even spend the money to see if it would be eligible. That's not something you need to see. You
Well,
only
that
need
would,
to
that
see.
make, if that's the process, that would be a good process. I
Yeah.
mean, like she says, we don't want to spend money that will get denied.
But you would want to see before the actual reimbursement is requested, you'd want to see what those expenditures.
Right. I'd want to kind of see where we're at on that.
Yeah. Not a
So how do
problem.
we vote, because that's not specifically a part of this resolution.
No, it's
Maybe
a
we
little
just
off
have a
topic.
general
It is a little
conversation
off
and just
topic.
go-
It's something we can vote on down the line.
Yeah.
And when it comes to that point. we-
I'm not opposing this resolution.
That's what we have in front of us tonight. Good discussion, and we can take it into consideration of how you submit, when you submit, and what comes for this commission.
Yes,
Okay?
absolutely. So Commissioner Smith, you stated, would you like a separate motion for the resolution and the agreement, or all as one?
Well, I think it's two different bodies of agreements, is it not, Tucker?
Yes, the one just gives the first agreement gives the mayor the authority to execute the contractual documents. The second part in section 7 is the actual fund reimbursement agreement with the state.
The resolution gives him the authority to sign the contract or the agreement.
So would they be separate?
They go hand in hand because the resolution gives the mayor the authority to sign the agreement with
So
the
we
state.
just need to vote on the resolution that carries over to the agreement?
Yes.
Okay.
Any more discussion? Roll call, please.
Smith?
Aye.
Clute?
Aye.
Bragg?
Aye.
Robish?
Aye.
Mayor Harrington?
Aye. So that will conclude our business for tonight. We are now going to go into a short work session for some budget hearings and dates and times. So with that,
Fun stuff. I just have